All right, so geometric series. All right, we started talking about this, but we need to go over the formula once again. Could you please put S of n, which is the summation of all of the series, all right, is going to be equal to the very first term, so we'll call that A1. I'm going to put parentheses 1 minus r to the power of n, okay, over 1 minus r. And that's going to be your formula you need to have in your journals so that you understand what you need to plug in. So S of n means the summation of all of them. What is A subset 1, or what does that mean? That's your first term. That's your first term. What does R represent? The common ratio. And n just represents the number of terms. Okay, so we're going to be using this formula to help us with this particular problem. It says, what is the first term of this series? And we have a total of 6 terms. Now, the sum is 15,624, and the common ratio is 5. So when you're doing these problems, we need to plug in what we know. So what number are we plugging in right here for the sum? That's the 15,624. What are we looking for? We're looking for the first term. What's our common ratio? Our common ratio is 5, but we have to raise it to the power of 6, and that's all divided by 1 minus our common ratio of 5. So when you guys are doing this, it's going to be very important that in your calculators do this part first. Very important. So we're going to go and do that in our calculators right now. Alpha y equals enter. All right, I think we have, what, 1 minus 5 to the power of 6 in the old numerator. We got 1 minus 5 in the denominator, and we get 3,906. So right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 15,624 equals our first term times 3,906. And then I'll just simply divide both sides by 3,906. All right, and that'll give us our first term. So 15,624 divided by this guy. So our first term is 4. So what would this mean if we actually had a pattern? If we multiply this by 5, what do we get? We get 20. Multiply that by 5, we get 100. Multiply that by 5, we get 500. Multiply that by 5, we get 2,500. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Multiply 2,500 by 5. What do we get? 12,500. 12,500. All right. So if you were to add all of those up, what does that give us? That gives us that 15,624. All right. So this is what we call a geometric sequence. But this sequence becomes a series when you find the what? When you find the sum of all of those together. So our first term in this particular case was the number 4. And we'll keep moving on. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called summation. Okay? I think this is going to be easier to do with this if we use what's called the summation. So if you would please put the sigma notation, please. Put the sigma notation. We are going to put x equals 1. And it says we need to do the first 7 terms. So up here, put a 7. Put the very first term right here. And then we're going to multiply it by a common ratio. And then we're just going to put x minus 1. So that's supposed to be an r. If you're watching, that's supposed to be an r right there. Now our first term is 1,024. 1024. And if you're trying to figure out the R, the common ratio, you take this term and you divide it by this term. So if I take 512 and divide it by 1024, that's going to be a half. So our common ratio is going to be a half. So here's what I would do in sigma notation. And I'll show you guys how to do it in your calculator. We're going to put x equals 1. We're going to put 7 here. We're going to put 1024 right there. We're going to multiply it by a common ratio of 1/2. And then I'll put 7 minus, actually not 7 minus 1, I'll put, yeah, let's put x minus 1 because it'll do it. It'll do it for us, okay, in our calculator. So write this down and we're going to go ahead and type this in together. So how do we get sigma notation? You hit alpha window and then you go number 2. So I'm going to pick x, make that a 1, go up here, type in a 7. Over here, what was our very first term? 1024. Then I'll put times my common ratio, which is 1/2. You know what? I'll go back and I'll do the alpha. I know you guys like this. Alpha y equals enter. So I'll put 1/2. And then I got to raise that to the power of x minus 1. All right. So what is going to be our final answer? Our final answer is 2032 if we took all of those and just added them together. All right, so 2032. All right. All right, so basically what we're going to be doing, we're going to be going back and forth. We're going to either use this one or we're going to use this one. So I want you guys to have both in your journal. I need you guys to have that guy in your journal, and I need you guys to have this guy in your journal. All right? So on this one, let's go ahead and take a look at it. It says the first term is 64. The common ratio is 0.75. Find the what? First four, the sum of the first 4 terms. Now, 4 terms is not that hard. You could do this without a calculator, okay? You could probably just do it and just write them down and take care of it. But I want you to get practice using the sigma notation. All right? So what's our very first term? 64. And we have a common ratio. What's going to be our common ratio? 3/4, which is that 0.75, and you're going to raise that to the power of x minus 1. You're going to put x equals 1 here, and you're doing just 4 terms. You're going to put 4 terms. So this is how you would type it into your calculator. All right? So all I did was just change that to 3/4. You could put 0.75 if you wanted to. All right? So here we go. Now, what would be another way you could do this if you want to just do it by hand? You would do 64, and then you would multiply this by 3/4 and get the next one, and then multiply it by 3/4 and get the next one, and multiply it by 3/4 and get the next one. So you could take 64, multiply it by 0.75, and you get 48. So you'd put a 48. And then you multiply that by 0.75, and what do you get? 36. And so you could write a 36. And then one more time, you multiply that by 0.75, and you get 27. And you write a 27. But then what do you have to do? You have to do 64 plus 48 plus 36 plus 27, and that would give you the summation of the first 4 terms, which is 175. Okay? But you could also, ready? Hit alpha window. Number 2, I'm going to put x, 1, 4 terms. What's our first term? 64. What are we multiplying that by? 0.7, oh, not 0.4, 0.75 raised to the power of x minus 1. And what do you still get? 175. All right? So I want to make sure that you understand what's happening. We're adding all of those together, but this is how you would use the formula to get the 175 that you need. Okay? 175. All right. We'll do one more, finding the first term. Then I'm going to be moving on to word problems. All right. When I'm doing this, I have to use this formula. You have to use the sum of the series is the first term times 1 minus r to the power of n all over 1 minus r. So whenever I have to find the first term, I need you guys to understand I got to use this formula. I'm not going to be using sigma notation. I'm going to be using this formula. Okay? So go ahead and write this down. I want you guys to write the common ratio. All I want you guys to write down in your journals is this right here. And I want you to write this formula down to make sure you know how to solve for the first term. So please write that down. All right, so it says that the common ratio of a geometric series is 3. So I'm going to put a 3 right here. The sum of the first 8 terms is 3,280. So I'm going to put that right here. So I'm going to start right here. 3,280. We're finding the first term, so I'll leave that as A1. Our common ratio is 3, so put 3. It says, first 8 terms, so what power am I going to put that? Right there. Power of 8. And then 1 minus 3. So what you guys are going to need to do in your calculator is do this section right here in the calculator. So right here, I'm going to hit alpha y equals enter. Do 1 minus 3 to the power of, I think it was 8, correct? Over 1 minus 3, and I get 3,280. Interesting. Wow. Well, that makes it really easy. Yeah. So I have A1 times 3,280. So it looks like my A1, not only is it a good steak sauce, but my answer is 1. That's my first term. Interesting. All right. Normally you'd have to divide both sides, but I think we can agree that that's not necessary. All right. So just remember, when you guys are doing this section, what are the 2 formulas you need? This formula and this formula. In case you're wondering what the summation notation formula is, I'll do it one more time. This is the summation notation. All right. I'm going to put x equals 1. I'm going to put nth term. This is your first term times the common ratio n minus 1. Well, I guess it would be x minus 1, but I'll just erase it. Put it in there. Less thing. So you want this one and you want this one. These are the same thing. All right? Oh, common ratio. R is the common ratio. All right? Ooh, here's a word problem. All right, so here's what I want you guys to do. Is that your problem? I think I have a student that has that same problem. I don't know. We'll find out. There we go. So finite geometric series word problems. Whew, that's a lot to write down, so I don't want you to write everything down. Okay, I just want you to write a couple of things down. All right, it's 20% more. It's not 20% less, it's 20% more. There's first 4 days. We have first 4 days. And the total number of shoppers is that right there. Okay? So what I'd like you guys to do is I'd like you guys to write down 20% more. The total number of shoppers over the first 4 days is 671. How many shoppers are at the mall on the first day? So we're going to round it to the nearest whole shopper. So you don't want to cut any arms and legs off. So we'll just round it to the nearest whole shopper. So remember we talked about the very first one? We're going to have to use this guy. S of n equals our first amount of shoppers times 1 minus r to the power of n all over 1 minus r. So if you would please write this down in your journal, and we'll show you guys how to do this. All right. So right here, for S of n, what number are we plugging in for the sum of all the shoppers? 671. Perfect. Now, we don't know how many shoppers there were the first day, so I'll put A subset 1 right there. Now, they didn't give us the common ratio. We have to kind of figure it out. So if it's increasing 20%, well, that means we already have 100%, and it's increasing 20%. So what is it actually growing by? 120%. So what decimal is 120%? 1.2. So what I want you guys to understand, that's the R value. So I'll put 1.2. Over the first 4 days, I got to raise it to the power of 4. All over 1 minus 1.2. So what do I have to do in the old calculator? That part right there. So I'm going to do that in the calculator. So we're going to have 671 equals the first term times whatever this guy is. So I got to do that. I got to do that in the calculator. I can't do that in my head. Sorry. I'm just not that smart. All right. So we've got 1 minus 1.2 to the power of 4 over 1 minus 1.2. 5.368. Okay. So I'm going to put 5.368. So now I'm going to divide both sides by that ugly decimal. 5.368. All right. So 671. Oh, try that again. 671. 1. There you go. Divided by this guy. 125. All right. So it looks like our very first term is what? 125 shoppers. So I'll type it in. See if this works. Check. Nailed it. All right. Oh, this one, they gave us the formula? Sweet. All we got to do is figure out the correct formula. All right. So I'm going to do a couple more and then I'm going to call it a day. So Marco went on a hiking trip. The first day he walked 24 kilometers. So just put, if you would, you don't have to write down all the words, just put A1 equals 24. Each day since he walked a third of what he walked the day before. So the common ratio is 1/3. Which expression gives the total distance Marco walked in the first n days? So we have to use the formula. S of n equals the first term times 1 minus r to the power of n all over 1 minus r. So here we go. First term is 24. 1 minus 1/3 to the power of n all over 1 minus 1/3. So this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this right here. All right, try to find that answer. So we have 24. There's the 1 minus 1/3 to the power of n over 1 minus 1/3. That one's looking pretty good. I'm going to say answer choice A. All right. And last problem. Harmony earns $42,000 a year in the first year of her career. Each year she gets a 4% keyword. 4% raise. So if she's already earning what? What's 100% of her salary? She's already earning $42,000, but a raise, what does that mean? She's increasing it by 4%. So technically the next year, what should she earn? 104% more. So what would be the R value in this particular 1.04? Very good, 1.04. So here we go. Here's your first term. Your first term is 42,000. All right, so that's your first term. Then what's the common ratio? The common ratio is 1.04, so we have to write S of n equals our first term times 1 minus r to the power of n all over 1 minus r. So she starts out with 42, so I put 42,000. That's what I'm looking for. Then we have 1 minus 1.04 to the power of n all over 1 minus 1.04. Well, what is 1 minus 1.04? 4. That's equal to negative 0.04. So what does this bottom part have to be? Instead of that, it's going to be negative what? Negative 0.04. So if we take a look at this, which one of these answers works out to be what we're looking for? A, B, C, or D? We're trying to match that guy. I'm going to say B. And that's what all you guys are doing. So you guys have the formula and the word problem. What are the two formulas that you're going to need to know how to utilize? You're going to have to know how to utilize this guy right here over and over and over again. All right? So you got to be able to use the formula and do the word problems. And the quiz is over both of those. Good luck.